Boy, this is great. NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, and even Nintendo 69 games, heck, they're all amazing, but you'd think that Nintendo would hurry up and put Virtual Boy games on the Nintendo Switch's online service next, am I right? Seeing that Nintendo's stock prices would triple, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad idea, but if you ask me, I think it'd be a game changer if the above average sized den were to dedicate time into making original games exclusive to the online service, and if you give me like 5 or 6 or maybe 7 minutes, I'll tell you why.
Cameron, all one word. Cameron, danger. Oh no, it never fails. He'll take the clues and find the where's and why's and who's. Cameron, all one word. Cameron, danger. Cameron.
Okay, so first and foremost, the main thing Nintendo ought to be focused on when it comes to charging us money to play their games online is improving the actual quality of the online service, the dedicated servers, and things of that nature. Like, yeah, the quality of the online play is usually passable for games like Mario Kart 8, but the fact that it's not even an ass hair better than it used to be when it was free means that Nintendo's pretty much holding the online play hostage, with the ransom being that we pay to rent 20 to 30-year-old ROM files, and if you ask me, I just don't think that justifies even $20 a year, let alone $50 for the premium. However, as I've said in my previous videos, the thing that got me to sell my principles and get the expansion pack wasn't for 64 or Genesis games, even though those did sweeten the pot a good bit if I'm being honest. Nah, the thing that got me to cave was the DLC, particularly for Mario Kart 8, but Animal Crossing in the hope of possibly more DLC down the line seemed pretty appealing to me if I'm being honest. But rather than just DLC and old ROMs, I think that new original games are a pretty big round that the above average sized dens got left in the chamber that I'm not even sure they realize they have, at least not at the time of this recording anyway. A lot of people want games like a new Punch-Out or Mario vs. Donkey Kong, but if Nintendo were to give those a standalone release, I don't think many people would feel like it'd warrant a $60 release, and it's not like Nintendo ever lowers their prices on their games anyway, so why not just make games like these for the premium tier? Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of physical media just for the sake of preservation alone, so usually I'm not on board with digitally exclusive games, but you could also have a limited run of physicals for games like these, just like they did with Mario 3D All-Stars for the people who just kinda like to buy everything. So if Nintendo were to occasionally add titles like a new Mario vs. Donkey Kong or Punch-Out as an option for the online service, then I don't think anybody would complain about them not having enough content. Hell, you could even make a compilation with all the expansion pack games on a physical at some point, but all I know is that when I was playing some of these older games, it made me miss the idea of playing brand new games from AAA developers that were more on the simplistic side. Despite all the shovelware out there, I'm well aware that there are some amazing indie games out there, and I'd even dare say that games like Shovel Knight and Celeste are better than most of the classics on the NES and Super Nintendo. But even so, there's still a lot of untapped potential with Nintendo's bag IPs, and not all of them need to be 40-plus hour adventures or be in massive 3D worlds. Given all the resources Nintendo has these days, I bet they could put out some really good games in the vein of the old games from the NES and Super Nintendo eras relatively easily. I mean, everyone considers Super Mario 3 and World to be the greatest games of all time, but those came out 2 years apart while Nintendo had far fewer resources than they do now, and I know that they pumped out 4 new Super Mario Bros. Games that most would agree aren't quite as memorable as 3 or World were. Even though I kinda think New U's underrated, I can't really argue that the new series wasn't pumped out, whereas 3 and World felt like Nintendo gave their all to them. Still though, if something like New Super Mario Bros. Just kinda popped up as a free game for the expansion pack every now and then I think the service would be far more than justifiable for most people. Granted, it would be a lot cooler if it had full-fledged AAA games like Game Pass does on the Xbox, but we're talking about Nintendo here, so I'm trying to be realistic, you know? As far as 2D Mario's concerned, Nintendo could always, try a little harder and give us something unique, but let's not kid ourselves here. Even if the game were less than 1 gigabyte, Nintendo would never just give a brand new 2D Mario game away for free when it would easily sell millions of copies at full retail price, regardless of how much we all complain about the price not being worth it online. I'm not saying a new 2D Mario game for the expansion pack wouldn't be cool, I just wouldn't expect it is all, but even so, there's still plenty of potential for some simpler, low-key Nintendo games based off of dormant IPs. I mean, just look at Mario 35, for example. Everyone friggin' loved that game, but then for whatever reason, Nintendo just kinda took it away when it'd have been a great incentive to get people to keep the expansion pack in addition to the DLC and 20-year-old ROMs. Nintendo even made low-key games on the Wii U like NES Remix that'd be perfect for sweetening the pot for the expansion pack. I mean, just think about how cool it'd be to play SNES, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, or dare I say N64, Gamecube, or Wii remixes. Just try looking at me in the ass and telling me that wouldn't rule your world. Nintendo did put both NES remixes onto a physical compilation, and that's cool, but these were originally just intended to be 2 bite-sized games that were digitally exclusive. They were never expected to light the world on fire. The Mario Odysseys and Breath of the Wilds are all great and all that, but I feel pretty strongly that the world still needs simpler games like this. Hell, even the DS and 3DS had simpler first-party games that you could only buy in the eShop digitally, like the aforementioned Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. The PAL version of the 3DS did have a rare physical release, and the Japanese Wii U version had a physical as well, but it still wasn't on the same scale as something like Smash Bros. Or Pikmin 3, and that's a good thing, because sometimes I don't feel like having an epic experience when I play a video game. Sometimes I just want to play something low-key, which is when I find myself messing around with the NES and Super Nintendo libraries, really out of convenience more than anything else. I don't know, I just gotta think some new games in the same style made by Nintendo themselves would be nice. Man, most people never played games like Star Fox 2 or Earthbound Beginnings, mainly because nobody owned a Wii U, and not that many people bought a Super Nintendo Classic Edition, which made these 2 titles essentially brand new, and I think we could all agree that these are pretty cool additions, right? Well, except for this guy anyway, but he hates everything, don't mind him, frig him. Just imagine how cool it'd be if we randomly got something as basic as a new Punch-Out, 2D Kid Icarus, or, you know, maybe a new IP or something. Or hell, even if Nintendo didn't feel like making one of these games themselves, they could just give the keys to a popular IP to an eager developer, but if the games are just gonna be given away for free, then maybe it doesn't make much financial sense for any party to do this. I'm not suggesting that they sacrifice significant resources to give games away for free to expansion pack subscribers, but if they just put a little bit of effort into giving us more than just old ROMs that most of us already have on our dad's Dell and occasional DLC, then I think the service would be a must-have rather than a take it or leave it like we got now. I mean, fans are making all kinds of cool ROM hacks all the time, so why not just embrace them for once and even help them out a little bit like Capcom did with Mega Man vs. Street Fighter or Sega did with Sonic Mania. Now, I know I sound like I'm out of my mind seeing as how we're talking about Nintendo here, but like, it is a much better solution than just suing everybody, so why the frig not, N-Dog? Stop being dicks. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but you know what? I don't care, because I think new old games would be awesome. Anyway, though, that's all for today. If you got a kick out of my rambling, then you should check out my video where I rank all the Smash Ultimate characters from good to evil, but if you'll excuse me, though, I gotta go well, I do. Later!